9 years ago, nearly 50 people were burned alive by far-right Ukrainian forces in the Odessa Trade Union House massacre. Nobody has been held accountable as the survivors and the families of the victims fight for justice, despite it being known from day one who was responsible.
One shudders at the memories of the terrible tragedy in Odessa, where peaceful protesters were brutally murdered, burned alive in the House of Trade Unions. The criminals who committed that atrocity have never been punished, and no one is even looking for them. But we know their names, and we will do everything to punish them, find them, and bring them to justice.
In fact, the only people that have been charged so far are those who were attacked.
There is video footage on this subject available to everyone. We know the names of those who shot at people jumping from the burning building. Ukrainian authorities have opened a criminal case against those who were burned. But the entire world community, ostensibly progressively minded, following the US lead, has shown no interest in this situation at all.
Just months after the US-backed Maidan coup, which ousted the Ukrainian president, hundreds were bussed into Odessa the night before a controversial protest rally, with football supporters rallied to join a provocative march.
They,
in April and even earlier, began to send their people to the recreation center, the sanatorium near Odessa. There were a lot of them. There were a lot of them in Zatoka in Odessa. They were there by the hundreds. In Zatoka, there were about 300 people at one of the bases. But they were already preparing an operation to shut the mouths of people in Odessa. It happened because this operation was planned by the SBU. They decided to teach Odessa a lesson, to shut us up and make an example of Odessa, and to show Ukraine who's the boss in the house.
Pro-Kiev forces set fire to tents at an encampment, driving pro-Russians into the Odessa Trade Union building. The police were not merely passive bystanders. They were filmed firing their guns into the trade union building. Many were trapped inside as crowds below chanted, "Burn, Colorado, burn," a reference to the pro-Russian colours of the ribbons worn by some of the protesters. As the fire tore through the building, the Ukrainian national anthem was sung by those gathered outside, taunting the trapped people as they burned to death. The Nazi-era slogan, Slava Ukraini, which is now used by Kiev's Western supporters, was shouted as people were dying inside the building, which was daubed with swastikas.
My point is that it wasn't just asphyxiation in the building. Many people were killed with a headshot. This was not an investigation, but a travesty of an investigation. It was all about drowning this investigation in a puddle of lies and untruths. They say they were looking for consensus. So, were you looking for consensus, or were you looking for the truth? They were saying that they had no data, that there were deaths due to outside interference.
No one has been held accountable for the atrocities. Right sector's Dmytro Yarosh, whose organisation claimed responsibility for coordinating the attack, even became a candidate for the Ukrainian presidency, and later an MP. He was never investigated by Ukrainian authorities, and he was not alone.
Bravo, Odessa! Let these devils burn in hell.
This day went down in history. Colorado stockpiles eliminated.
Alexei Goncharenko, who took part in the Odessa protests, was later elected to the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly. These are the so-called Democrats backed by the West. On today's anniversary commemoration, events have been banned in Odessa once again, as pro-Kiev forces seek to erase the event from memory. And Ukraine's Western backers have also sought to downplay the role of far-right Ukrainian forces. Of course, they cannot draw attention to the massacre or admit who was responsible. To do so would blow a major hole in the narrative that there are no fascists or neo-Nazis in Ukraine, which they hail as a beacon of freedom and democracy. 9 years on from the attack, the victims have been largely forgotten by the West, sacrificed as pawns in its proxy war against Russia, and abandoned by those who claim to stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine.
Ukraine is a terrorist state that has taken its entire population hostage. There is no hope for Ukraine, that's for sure, 100%. I have talked to many from the OSCE. One person told me that there is little hope that anyone will do anything. So the only hope is if the military operation ends up as planned.